الله خير. كوعوا يا اولاد كوعوا، ما في حد يرمس. الدار داركم.
زين وخلاص يا حمودي.
بسم الله. تأكد منها، أنا موجه من فوق ونزيد الباب. بعد رجال؟ أنا وهيك بتعتبر حالك إسرائيلي. سيارة الحديد داخل. تصورهم.
بقى الأمور هيخش ورا حمودي على العواش عند المترو بيمشوا على الجبلين.
شغل بخاطر انت، كل يوم تودع اولادك. الصبح تودعهم، انك ابصر ترجع ما ترجع. ما بتقدر تغطي نفقاته، اليوم في كل شيء غالي، من كهرباء، من مصاريف، من بيت، من مي، من او بالمدرسة بده، حتى لو بدك تروح على الصحة بدك تدفع. طب انا لو ما رجعتش هذا الشغل وين بدي اشتغل؟ بالنسبة لي
صار بقول لي يا عم، يا عمو بقول لي نسي اني انا ابوه.
والبعد والشو اسمه هي في السجن حياة ثانية، حتى يسموها هذه مقبرة الأحياء في السجن، إنه أنت عايش ومش عايش.
قالوا اليهود ممنوع يقلطوا من هان، هذا بيقلطوا الناس من هان، احنا بنسكر عليكم من فوق. ممنوع اذا بتعمر شيء جديد وبتبني شيء جديد بيجوا بيهدوه.
بدك تعيش سواء كانت منيحة ولا مش منيحة، يعني حتى لو كانت صعبة بدك تموت، يعني بدك تموت، بدك تعيش. مزبوط.
Dear Daniel Carsenty, zooming in from LA right now, and dear Mohammed Abugeth joining us from Berlin. Congratulations on being invited to TIFF 2021 with the world premiere of your documentary, The Devil's Drivers. The film is a long-term observation around a tough topic and shot on tricky terrain. Chased by the Israeli army, two Bedouins smuggle Palestinian workers from the West Bank to Israel. Mohammed, how did you and Daniel end up in car chases in the Negev desert together? Give us a brief origin story of the project and your initial access point to it.
Thank you for the nice introduction and thank you for the congratulations. You know, 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, I was invited to do electronic for the electronic school in Potsdam. And it was September 2011. It was a scholarship from a foundation that I can go and learn online journalism for 3 weeks. And I was in Potsdam, and then I wanted to apply for Babelsberg Film School at that time. And then I went to visit the school, and I talked to different students, and then I met Daniel. He was buying coffee at the coffee machine, and I talked to him. And I asked him, I want to apply, what should I do? And I am from Palestine. And then we got along together, and I invited him to come to Palestine because I had limited visa. I had to go back, and he told me this is not the best time for me, but I promised to visit you in Palestine, and I believed him. And then in the next year, he visited Palestine. He was like something to do, and then he came by, and then we talked long, we get to know each other, and we decided like to do documentary, and we started to do the research. We started to do first shooting together film about another documentary about a bird, but it was difficult with the protagonist. Then we went to the desert. We were with the school, theater school. They go to the Bedouins to visit villages where they're like disconnected to the cities. They were playing, and then somehow we started to do research, and we heard that they want the Bedouin. They're always under pressure to demolish their houses. So we started to think that it could be here another film, not also in East Jerusalem, both. And at that point, for me, was dangerous to cross the border or to continue, because we were in Hebron. And then we found the research, like we found there is a smuggling in this area. And but then Daniel like told me this is 90-minute films, 90 minutes. Then we like he had to go back to Germany, and then he filmed with them one day. And for me, I was scared at the beginning because to go there. Then I started to do the research. Like I visited them, but then I started, it doesn't mean after 1 week, I mean after 3-4 months, I don't remember when, but I started to visit them in Yatta, and I got the number for different smugglers. So I started to do research, and then Daniel came back and we watched the material of the day shooting with him, and we started to see during the camera, like which one is good to continue to film with him. And he was, Daniel, the day he shot with him with his cousin is fine. And then we saw that Hamouda is more charismatic to film with him. Then we went back together, and we went to film. Daniel came extra to film 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Me and him, like to be 3 weeks with them. And then it was like during Ramadan, and which I got permission to go to Israel, but of course not to go with the smuggler. But it will be like that I go to the other side. So we decided to go 3 weeks with them, to stay 3 weeks. And this was the first time with them in the car.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. You're just describing a decade of work on this project. And it also, the geography that you just described is so complex. And I'm just, I mean, I have a million questions also, knowing that you were born in Jerusalem, right? I believe, Mohammed. The fact yes. that you can't freely move about, and that you had these hurdles. I mean, it's amazing already that Daniel managed to come. And then I believe, Mohammed, you then actually moved to Germany in 2013, I believe, right? So how did that happen? And what did that do to the process?
Yeah, I was contacting Daniel, trying to do the trailers. We shoot the material. Then we can have the 1.5 year research. And then I applied to film school, international journalist school, or Deutsche Welle Academy.
Yeah.
2013, September, I moved, 1st of September 2013, I moved to study in Bonn.
To Germany, and then you stayed, obviously, but you continued working on this particular project. So I assume you kept going back for shoots. How did that work?
Exactly. We started to translate the material that we shot with them at the time being. Like one day I shoot alone, and then in one day alone, maybe 8 days of shooting together, 9 days of shooting, me and Daniel. We started to translate the material. And then we managed to, through Babelsberg Film School, student pitch, February 2014. I pitched the film, and then we tried to find producers, redactor, so we can contact. And then we speak about 10 months contacting producers, and then in 2000, after 1 year or 1 year 4 months, we got the okay from Arta to film, to continue the project. We did the trailer.
Yeah.
3 minutes. We did the trailer to show them what we did. And then they gave us the okay to go to film again. Of course, art took so long to decide the last decision. Then we decided to go in the winter, October, and we started again to film October for 6 months in a row. And we rent apartment in Hebron. Then we started to go to Yatta from Hebron for 6 months. But of course, like you don't speak we went back to Germany 3 weeks to watch the materials, then to prepare shooting 3 weeks, then we went there. So we got like another like maybe 18 or 20 days of shooting, and we started to film with them. But of course, what we found, what happens with the protagonist after 3 years, was they are different people, the different circumstances they live, and all of them, they went at least once or twice to the prison.
To jail, exactly. And also in your film, that's beautifully done for people who don't have sort of the full background, you know, beyond sort of news flashes. You describe the intifadas and what that meant for those Bedouins. We'll come back to your protagonists and how you dealt with them and how you left them, so to speak, in a bit perhaps. I want to jump back a bit before we talk about that TIFF invitation some more. Daniel, in early 2016, we showed your feature debut, the refugee drama After Spring Comes Fall, in our Goethe Films at TIFF Lightbox series here in Toronto. And I vividly remember that evening. And audiences were stunned to get a glimpse of a world that none of us here had access to, basically the illegal refugee underground once you get to Europe. The film tells the story of a young Kurdish Syrian woman who escapes her home country to Berlin, but then she doesn't get a fresh start because the Syrian Secret Service tracks her down and instrumentalizes her. So in that film, you already deal with questions of how someone experiences massive political pressures to betray their ideals, and at what point one starts to resist and at what personal cost. Beside the fact that this was your graduation film, that it had just premiered at the prestigious Whole Film Festival when I curated it, and then it won the First Steps Michael Ballhaus Award, among others. What was still most astounding to me was that you produced it in early 2014, I believe, right, at the Academy. And that was when the most pronounced refugee wave that we're now talking about hadn't even quite begun. So you had good instincts to tell that story like that early. And I'm saying that because I think it is impactful for your oeuvre and hopefully and probably for what's to come. You also managed to create a film with a lot of moral shades of gray in the process. And I see that again in The Devil's Drivers. So a tall order for an emerging filmmaker at the time. How did this experience of launching your post-school career with such a successful, I want to call it a political art house thriller, impact your path forward? And how did it take you to the American Film Institute, where you are right now as we speak? And how did it take you to The Devil's Drivers?
So first of all, thank you very much for your kind words, and also for screening After Spring Comes Fall at that time. When I wrote that film in 2012, 2013, there was a bit of a tendency of saying, what we need is more comedies. Why are you telling this story? And it was also 10 years back, people would say, why do you have a female protagonist? So there was a bit of a skepticism when I was writing the film, but I didn't take it very serious, and I just continued. And of course, I'm very happy that you are one of the people who supported the film and screened it in Toronto. And I'm happy to be here now, almost 10 years later, with a new film. Basically, we had the premiere in Hof on the 20th of October, and I think on the 28th of October, I was already in the plane to shoot The Devil's Drivers. So the success of After Spring Comes Fall helped our financiers to make a positive decision towards us. Also the nominations for awards. They are very critical in the career of a filmmaker. So in a way, I mean, the origin story of After Spring Comes Fall is that I was shooting actually with a young man who was just about to be recruited to become an informer for a security agency. And after around 6 days of documentary work, we both decided to stop this work, that it was getting too dangerous for both of us. So I started to fictionalize the story. And the moment I talked to Syrians in Berlin, I was hearing more and more of these stories. So After Spring Comes Fall is based on the real life of a Syrian woman living in Berlin, but strongly motivated or influenced by my documentary work before. And I think what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to go with open eyes through the world and feel like, what are the tendencies? And I think the Arab Spring, in the way it opened up society, always included the danger of what people called an Islamic winter, which happened later with Daesh, ISIS. So in a way, freedom goes hand in hand with danger, opportunities go hand in hand with risks. And I think that was kind of like what motivated me in 2012 to go into a journey of After Spring Comes Fall and continued with The Devil's Drivers. The American Film Institute is a place where I was always looking to find a way to tell local stories in a global way. And I think that's something that the American Film Institute does in a very good way. I think that's also the big strengths of the American storytelling tradition, to take hyper local stories, but tell them so specific that they are available and interesting and fascinating to a global audience. So basically that's my desire. That's what I've been learning. That's what I've been doing with my films. And I hope to do it with my next film even more.
And we'll get to that maybe towards the end. But what you've just said, I was going to ask you about sort of how a filmmaker who works in multiple formats and genres makes format decisions. And you've partly answered it, but I was going to specifically point out that, to me, when I watch your films, I think you have a special knack for delivering what is, in a way, Mohammed set this up, a news channel commissioned political documentary, right? This will be shown on Arte Television, but it's not your standard issue news piece on Palestine, right? There's always a lot of narrative, there's a lot of storytelling, and there's genre nods. Daniel, you also come out of theater and photographic work and education. So I just feel that you have a particularly broad and liberal toolbox at your disposal somehow. I wanted to sort of poke you a bit about the title, The Devil's Drivers, very racy. And then some of the taglines you guys have been using are a Bedouin gangster story. It's been called an action-packed thriller with the intensity of a 1970s chase film. And it is all of these things. And maybe Mohammed, you work as a audiovisual journalist for Deutsche Welle and others. Can you just tell us how you position this particular documentary in your industry, between sort of TV news documentary and a piece of storytelling?
Yeah, like the film kind of I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I was looking at the Palestinian films, and I was looking at the like different genre, what kind of films they're done about Palestine, and so most of the documentary that done about Palestine, it's like kind of they speaking about the memory and directly go to 1948, and so for me, it started to say that Israeli are fictions and Palestinian are documentaries. So then this film, it's kind of documentary, but live fiction. Like not fiction by what they're doing is fiction, but the elements of the film, what you see is a lot of action happening. It's like moving.
Yeah.
So for me, also the protagonists also kind of do make a decisions. They don't sit at home and waiting things to happen. They kind of go. They risk their life. So this is kind of in some way element of fiction documentary. It's like you do it in a way that you enter the film, you live in the film in a way that you follow a big superhero film. Like, but for Palestinian to still alive, to survive the family, this is kind of superhero, which just to stay alive, this is something big. To live this daily life is something big, and he's doing this and doing one more and one more every day, and he's still alive. Like, could be shot any day or maybe any moment, any second. So for me, I like the idea that to show a Palestinian like action, doing stuff, initiate stuff, and this is the protagonist in the film. If they decide are good or bad, whatever, but they are alive, you know, they want to survive, to continue.
Yeah. Thank you, Mohammed. You're already setting up, in a way, my next question. You take us to a bigger picture around filmmaking. There's a lot going on right now in the documentary world. Debates about authenticity and hybridity. And you, for example, have these infographic scenes intercut that I thought were really helpful and very successful, for example, with background information on the Intifadas to position us in these men's stories. In the documentary world, there's also debates about fact-checking, responsibility, as well as the question of who is telling whose story. And can you guys, both of you, perhaps just briefly expand again on how you safeguard it and how you build trust with these protagonists? You are showing on camera men engaged in illegal activities, you know, and there is one scene in the middle. I'm not going to give any spoilers because people need to see this film that I really, really enjoyed. But in the middle, there's that one moment where both of you are actually engaged at an Israeli checkpoint yourselves. So this is high stakes for everyone involved. Can you just tell us how you dealt with that responsibility towards your protagonists, how they came to you with being on film and now being screened worldwide with their names and their faces and their families and their homes? So what's the safety situation around that?
I think the strength of this film is its emotional depths. We took a film which could have been located in the genres, a thriller or a documentary, for example, like Cartel Land. But what we did is we personalized it, and we are not aiming at a universal or an objective truth. What we are aiming at is a very subjective, emotional truth. And I think the way we are showing our protagonists is truthful in the way we portray how they look at the world around them. And without focusing what is the Palestinian narrative or what is the Israeli narrative. These people are survivors. And we as filmmakers, our goal is to keep integrity. And I believe that our integrity as filmmakers is stronger a protection like any bulletproof vest or any helmet or any lawyer later. Of course, that doesn't mean that we're not using what we call like basic how'd you call it, the security measures, for example. Any action that you see in the film is 4 years back. The statute of limitation for smuggling is 3 years. So no court, in the world could legally put these people, hold these people accountable for what you're seeing. And of course, we can prove that with the unique timestamps in the raw material. So, of course, there's like a basic level of protection, but I think that what really, I mean, Mohammed and me, we never, you know, wear protective gear. We didn't come with a big van or anything. We were just two humble people trusting that our own honesty and our own integrity would keep us safe. And I think
with the press pass, right? With the press pass that you get to show once, which is also
yeah, we did have an international press pass. That's clear. That's, I think, the basic. If you don't have this press pass and without a press accreditation, of course you shouldn't. It would be not possible. I mean, we passed easily like 20 or 30 checkpoints and controls, and equipment has been taken away and given back, and all these things happened. But I think we got through because every person involved knew that we're not a threat. Every person involved knew that we're telling a personal story and not reinforcing a narrative.
And I also got a sense, and Mohammed was hinting at that before, that, I mean, that is their lives. They've all been to jail. It seemed kind of like, oh yeah, I'm going to jail for another, whatever, couple of months, couple of years, right? And it just seems to be part of the fabric of life there. So it also struck me that probably these men who you got to engage with you in that documentary weren't that deterred or afraid. I mean, I'm sure they're afraid, and they're afraid for their families, that you have scenes about that as well, but they're just very conscious of the possibility of being arrested pretty much at any given moment, right? Like, that's also, I think, a sense that I took away from your film. And speaking of that, the reception of the film, you both know the region and its troubles really well, and from both sides. And Daniel, you've also lived in Israel. You speak the languages there. Has anything shifted for either of you in your perception of the conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Did you have any new insights while working specifically on and with the devil's drivers? I'm asking too, because as a viewer on the outside of the conflict, like me, your documentary made me really sit back and reconsider what I thought about, say, the viability of a one-state or a two-state solution. So, but for you, you're really in it and you have a stake in it. Was there that moment where you went like, okay, that is not something that, a realization that had hit me 10 years ago?
Mohammed, do you want to start?
Yeah, like to understand the question shortly again,
I mean, for you, it's even more specific, I guess, because again, you're Palestinian born in Jerusalem. But did anything for you shift in getting to know these men in particular? We're in a Bedouin community in the West Bank. They're human traffickers, as you call them. And did that shift your perspective at all, Mohammed, on the conflict and possible solutions? I also read somewhere that you were saying, I'm a audiovisual storyteller, and I like to tell stories about the past and how it impacts the future, and I like to do so with hope. And I stumbled across that sentence that you said somewhere, so maybe you can comment on that.
You know, for me, like to live in Jerusalem and to go to live also in Ramallah, then, and to be close to people also in Ramallah who like kind of privilege, or they can go out Palestine, can enter, can travel, where you used to study outside in Ramallah, where is the government, and then you discuss with them the like solution politic. But when you go to the south, and somehow you will understand where is the economy built in Palestine. It's like it's hidden. Where is the economy? Who runs the cities? And somehow Hebron is a very strong city for Palestinian economy, the city and their villages. So I started to understand more and to encounter many situation and to understand how it works, how if these people stop, what will happen for the infrastructure. So you understand the politic, but if you meet these people who really in danger, you will know, you will understand how this conflict or how this political situation influence people who are like 100,000, 200,000, a lot of workers, so many workers that they are the economy.
Yeah, and the mutual interdependence, because I came away with the sense that also Israel cannot really build anything and keep a construction going without hundreds of thousands of Palestinian workers, as you say.
Yeah, you don't know the number. So many people go and inside, so nobody counting, nobody give them like any paper. So they're random number. We try to know exactly. Everyone say a number. So we kind of say around 60,000 illegal or like without permit. So of course, I learned a lot. I understood a lot of things, like because I face it, I see it.
يوميتها كانت لي محكمة وسمح لي دقيقتين طبعا. اتصلت الساعة 3 الصبح يوم ما انولد، رنيت تلفون حكوا لي اجاك ولد. الحمد لله انحكمت 3 شهور. كنت يعني أول إشي كنت بدي أشوفه. هذا اسمه مراد.
هات أبوس. هات أبوس. كيف كان شعورك لما شفتها اجيت طالع من السجن لقيت عندك ابن؟
الحمد لله رب العالمين. شعور لا يوصف. شعور لا يوصف، يعني فيش وصف لهيك شعور. يعني انت ما كنتش تملك انه يوم من ولد انك تضمه، تأذن في ذانه، تقيم الصلاة في ذانه الثاني من السنة ومن الشرع. هذا الشيء عند تسوي هيك، ما كنتش موجود.
So Daniel, what has potentially shifted for you? Any new perceptions about the conflict, particularly in dealing with these men, these protagonists, and filming the devil's drivers over the last few years?
I think what really changed during the process of shooting this film was that before I was very perceptive to both narratives. And while shooting this film, I basically realized that as long as there are different sides of a conflict, every side will keep their own self-interests and they will not compromise. And I personally don't see any side, stepping to the other and saying, okay, I'm going to accept your narrative. I'm going to go your way. So what I understood while shooting this film is the only way to break this deadlock is actually to discover common ground, to jump in a way to a place that is not, occupied by the own narrative, but which has the leading idea of I can only turn my life and the circumstances of my life better if I understand the humanity in the other person, that person on the other side of the divide or behind the sights of my rifle, or as we want to term this. So I think that what I really learned is to discover common ground in other people, to see what connects us. And I think that the biggest power that can save us as humanity is to discover what connects me to other people instead of looking what makes me different to another human being.
Yeah, and I do think personally, just as one viewer, for me, your film very much did that, to sort of, you know, not vilify either side, but to humanize the one side and really show, you know, there's a number of people as fathers, as men who have to work and make a living, and that was really impactful for me. So thank you for that film. I promise we would.
Maybe
Yeah.
I may add, I think the only way to end a conflict or a war is to recognize the humanity in the person on the other side of the divide.
Yeah, I don't dare to ask either of you for predictions where, you know, decades of leaders have failed, but I'm sure you will stay in the region. We'll get to that in a minute, but I promised we would get back to TIFF, and you submitted the film to TIFF, your first documentary feature together, and were selected for a world premiere. What was the TIFF programmers' feedback on why they chose your film for this very limited and exclusive lineup in 2021, and just also quickly tell us how it will be shown. I think there are cinema screenings planned at TIFF, and Daniel, I believe you're coming over, and Mohammed might be coming over if you get a visa in time. So just set us up. What was the TIFF feedback? What stood out to the programmers there about your film that got you this world premiere?
When Tom called me, I was in the middle actually of a production, my next film that will be hopefully finished soon. And what he said is that he admired the humanity that we discovered in this very dangerous environment. And his goal by putting our film on screen in Toronto is to show the human stories behind headlines, to show what are the circumstances, what is the decision-making, what are the human costs, what does it mean emotionally to these people involved? And I think that was kind of like what really drew him to our story. And of course, I think also the idea that our film does end hopeful. And I think that his idea that maybe there is something for us as humans to learn out of our film and out of the hopeful idea that stands at the end.
Yeah, and here we are with an outlook. And as I said, I'm guessing from both of your previous work and this work that this is not the last work that we see from you about the region. You have more films about to come out, as a quick IMDb check even can tell you. Tell us briefly what's next for either of you, and potentially for you together as a creative team. And I just wanted to throw in at that point that Mohammed told me that pretty much your first, or one of your first encounters with film training and filmmaking was at the Goethe-Institut Ramallah with my colleagues, and you had previously studied German at the Goethe-Institut, but then kind of had this opportunity for a film workshop. So, you know, it's a beautiful global story too, to see that, and that you're in Berlin and hopefully will keep working. So tell us what you're working on.
I'm working in a film, and I'm writing a film about Berlin. So now I'm writing a film about the underground of Berlin, and the film is called Hasenheide. It's like the name of the park. So yeah, it's also female protagonist, and I shot last year a short movie, also fiction film. So 10 minutes about also Berlin, and how the people come from the whole world to Berlin and they change completely. So it's I think I will do film now, hopefully feature about Berlin, and then I come back to do against another feature about Palestine. But now I am writing the feature about Berlin.
Exactly. So that's a fiction feature film, and that will be ready potentially then next year. Is that how? No, you're writing it now, so maybe 2023 we're going to get to see it.
I write it now, you know. Yeah, maybe shooting not next summer, maybe the summer after, or
yeah,
the year.
yeah. There's still delays, and you need to fund it.
I need to fund it. I kind of waiting to put the Devil's Drivers outside, and this will happen next month in September. So then I will focus more on the film Hasenheide about this, because the actors are famous and they really want to play in it. And also I have a co-writer. It's funny. It's from Toronto. It's like she's from Toronto. And
who's that?
Yeah, sure.
Disclose it.
No, it's
you heard it here first. Well,
so yeah, she's everything's coming together.
Everything is coming together. That guarantees you some sort of premiere here. Like maybe we'll get to show it first. Yeah. That would be amazing. Yes, as I lived next to Hasenheide for years.
Toronto and all the stuff come together. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, Berlin first, but then probably at some point also back to Palestine. And for you, Daniel, you already said you're working on various things, and then you're also, I know you're about to move, not back to Berlin immediately, but to Dhaka. So tell us a wee bit about that.
I won't be moving to Dhaka because of the difficulties at the moment of travel. So I'll be teaching remote, but I hope next year to actually move, at least for a short period of time. I'm working on a documentary and on a feature. The documentary, I can't say too much about it at the moment because we're actually already in a development phase, but it will definitely have the emotional depths. It will be a character-driven story the way The Devil's Drivers is, but it will also ask ourselves, The Devil's Drivers ask the question, like, how did we come so far? And my new film will also ask ourselves, like, what can we do to change? How can we as a human race not only learn of the mistakes that we did, but how can we also implement a sense of change for the future? So in a way, it will be, I would say, a mix of Cartel Land and The Social Dilemma with the emotional depths of The Devil's Drivers, and also a very personal story again.
Great tagline already, yeah.
Oh, thank you. But on a feature level, I'm working at the moment on a feature that happened during the last war in May between Israel and Gaza. And it is the story of two people, one whose lives meet twice. Early at the beginning of the war, during one of the riots that took place at a gas station in where a huge mob more or less almost killed a couple of workers, people that I know very well from my documentary work. And the life of two people, one is the victim of this attack and one is one of the perpetrators, intervene in a very tragic way when rockets start pounding this area, and the life of people are very violently interrupted. So it sounds again like a very violent story of war, but it's actually more an investigation of what we have actually in common, and what these common grounds can be, not only on a circumstantial level, but also on a way to actually go into a future which is better than the now and hopefully a lot better than the past.
Yeah, and God knows we need that right now, right? A better future. And I can see that I'm sure that we'll come back if you agree to speak again when your next projects are out and to follow up. So, lieber Mohammed, lieber Daniel, gute Projektion. Have a very successful TIFF and then a festival and a theatrical and a streaming run with the Devil's Drivers. And thank you, Daniel and Mohammed will also jump in for offering a documentary workshop for filmmakers for the Goethe Toronto with the liaison of independent filmmakers as well. And I will see you there virtually and hopefully in person. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.